So again, we whizzed briskly back into the archaic period and the ancient period, which in a way first lights up with Plato. And perhaps as it seems, it's not so far away because we can kind of grasp it all at once. It's somehow available to us. So again, I'm trying to work with the openness inherent in the word Dasein. I say word in order to avoid saying concept or even idea, and perhaps that's appropriate to Heidegger's thinking, since the word is at least close to language, and language, Heidegger says, is the house of being. So I am expressionistic here in bringing some concept of Agamben and some things Agamben have said together with some questions in Heidegger, and trying to think Dasein in a different way. There seems to be quite a number of ways of thinking Dasein. Let me read something from Agamben. Okay, so this is from an essay called Reflections on History and Play. Etymologists, I can't exactly read it if I try to film it at the same time. Etymologists reduce the word aeon to a root A-W, which means, in inverted commas, vital force. And this, they say, is the meaning that aeon would have had it had in its most ancient, would have had in its most ancient Homeric text. In its most ancient instances in the Homeric texts, before taking on that of, in inverted commas, spinal marrow. And finally, by a somewhat inexplicable passage, that of, in inverted commas, duration, and in inverted commas, eternity. And finally, by a somewhat inexplicable passage, it's taken on this meaning of duration and eternity, after having passed through the meaning spinal marrow, and having originated out of this meaning vital force, where perhaps vital can be split from force so that they constitute an opening, a Dasein-like opening. How is one to take that simply as a proof of the aleatoriness of all the ways of thinking, and how so far can we make that concrete so that we can see that it connects to our thinking as it is now? Of course, we do think quite a bit in terms of having the environmental world or nature before us, the cosmos, as it were, and then that we can think about it, have so-called epistemologies about it, reason over it, that the something like thinking or the mind can be contrasted with that and pass over it. I've been thinking about how to, so it's kind of weird to throw in a bunch of things in the sort of soup pot, as it were, in the jambalaya, but somehow I think it's related to this subject matter of Dostoevsky's move contra Christianity and universality. So where are we getting into this problem where we have to stick with universality, and where does Dostoevsky have the problem with the Western Church? So Dostoevsky has said somewhere, I think him himself, not one of his characters, has said, but I might be mistaken, has said that if it were proven that the truth were against Christ, he would stay with Christ. So truth is actually just what Nietzsche has said is done with, although it's done with at the exact same time with appearance. So the very whole conception of the move up from the cave into the sun, towards truth, is supposed to be dispensed with by Nietzsche. Therefore, Plato is supposed to be dispensed with. And then we can't really even speak of a heresy against Plato, but of a total um, repudiation of Plato, or something worse than a repudiation. Um, so I think this is interesting to see how it shows. Try to make it see how it shows in the exact comments with that, which have come down to, in the exact concepts which have come down to us, logical concepts which have to base themselves in a notion of truth and in a notion of non-contradiction in the strict logical sense. So this is interesting that in that Peterson Bishop Barron debate, which was the second time they had a discussion, there was Peterson, as it were, spontaneously has taken a position which must bring us back into more into the ambit of Plato and prior to Aristotle, because everything after Aristotle seems to be overpowered by a few notions. So, such as the notion they were in conflict over was the notion whether the good or being, the being understood as good, um, could only show itself in a privative state, which we call evil, so that evil is the privation of the good, rather than in the version of the Manichae, this force on equal footing with the good that has its own positive existence. Um, so this one, probably the essential way this shows itself in simply in Aristotle, is on the question of what motion is, and the determination that rest is the limit